Admiral Zix 427 of the Galactic Confederation stood rigid, all 6 of their sensory appendages twitching in distress as they watched the scene unfolding in Maintenance Bay 17. Through the observation window, a human engineer was committing what could only be described as maintenance sacrilege. Commander Ashara Patel, newly appointed chief engineer of the Joint Human-Alien Space Station Harmony Point, was conducting repairs on a quantum stabilization unit without consulting a single maintenance manual. Even worse, she was whistling. "This is unprecedented," Zix 427 muttered to their first officer, Lieutenant Krell. "Where is her diagnostic quantum array, her probability calculator, the standard team of 15 certification specialists?" Krell's crystalline structure flickered with anxiety. "She claims she doesn't need them, Admiral. The humans call it intuitive engineering." They watched as Paddle pulled something from her toolkit that made both aliens recoil in horror. A simple metal wrench that looked like it belonged in a pre-spaceflight museum. She held it up to her ear, tapped the malfunctioning quantum stabilizer with it, and nodded confidently. "Yep, just as I thought. The quantum harmonics are out of sync. Give me 5 minutes," she called out, already reaching for her tools. 5 minutes. Zix 427's voice modulator cracked. The Galactic Confederation Maintenance Protocol clearly states that quantum stabilizer diagnostics alone require a minimum of 3 standard days, followed by. The Admiral's voice trailed off as Paddle opened an access panel without filing the required 17 forms in triplicate. She reached inside with practiced ease, made a few adjustments with her primitive tools, and gave the unit what she called a love tap with her wrench. The quantum stabilizer, which had been malfunctioning for the past 2 weeks, despite the best efforts of the station's most qualified maintenance philosophers, hummed to life with perfect harmony. "There we go," Paddle said, patting the machine affectionately. She just needed a little adjustment and some encouragement. Encouragement. Lieutenant Krell's translator struggled with the concept. "Machines do not require emotional support, Commander Patel. They require precise calibration according to Section 7249B of the." A sudden alarm blared through the station, cutting off Krell's citation of regulations. The main reactor was experiencing unexpected fluctuations, and according to all proper protocols, this meant evacuating 3 decks and convening an emergency committee. But before either alien officer could begin implementing standard procedures, Patel was already sprinting toward engineering, her tool belt jingling in clear violation of noise ordinance regulations. "Commander Patel," Zix 427 called after her. "You cannot possibly address a reactor malfunction without proper authorization from the Reactor Response Review Board. The paperwork alone takes at least 2 standard weeks." "No time for paperwork when the reactor's throwing a tantrum," Patel shouted back, already disappearing around a corner. "Sometimes you just gotta improvise." Improvise. The word sent shivers through both aliens' crystalline structures. It wasn't even listed in the official Galactic Engineering Lexicon. The aliens followed Patel to engineering, if only to document the violations for their incident report. They arrived to find her already elbow-deep in the reactor's auxiliary control system, using what appeared to be. Both aliens had to adjust their optical sensors to believe it. A roll of adhesive tape and a small hammer. "You cannot possibly fix a quantum reactor with such primitive tools," Zix 427 protested, their voice rising to a pitch that made nearby crystalline beings vibrate in sympathy. "Where are the quantum entropy modulators? The probability field generators? The team of theoretical physicists required to contemplate the philosophical implications of each adjustment?" Patel emerged from the access panel, her face smudged with reactor coolant. "Look, Admiral, I respect your methods, but sometimes the old ways work best. This reactor isn't actually malfunctioning. It's just got a loose connection that's causing power fluctuations. A bit of reinforcement here, a careful adjustment there. And..." She made one final adjustment, and the reactor's angry rumble smoothed into a perfect hum. The warning lights cleared, and the status displays all returned to optimal levels. Problem solved. She finished with a satisfied smile, wiping her hands on her utility coveralls. Another violation of at least 12 different cleanliness protocols. Admiral Zix 427 and Lieutenant Krell stood in stunned silence, their data tablets forgotten in their appendages. The reactor diagnostics showed everything functioning at 103% efficiency, 3 percentage points higher than manufacturer specifications. But this is impossible, Krell finally managed. The regulations clearly state. Sometimes, Paddle said gently, you have to look beyond the regulations and trust your instincts. Machines aren't just collections of parts and protocols. They're more like partners. You have to listen to them, understand their quirks, and sometimes just give them what they need, even if it's not in the manual. As if to emphasize her point, the reactor purred contentedly, its power output perfectly stabilized. Admiral Zix 427 felt their worldview beginning to crack like an unstable crystal matrix. Commander Patel, are you suggesting that your species routinely maintains complex machinery without following proper procedures? Well, we have procedures, Patel admitted, securing her tools back in their belt. They're just a bit more flexible. Sometimes you need a manual, sometimes you need a wrench, and sometimes you just need to know which panel to sweet-talk. The Admiral's cognitive processors nearly shut down trying to comprehend this approach to engineering. But they couldn't deny the results. In the time it would have taken to merely file the initial incident report, Patel had resolved 2 major malfunctions and improved overall system efficiency. As they watched her head off to her next task, whistling that strange tune again, Admiral Zix 427 made a mental note to update their report to the Galactic Confederation. Humans don't just fix machines, they somehow form relationships with them. And perhaps most disturbing of all, it works. Lieutenant Krell's crystals pulsed with confusion. Should I begin documenting these violations, Admiral? Zix 427 stared at the perfectly functioning reactor, then at the retreating form of Commander Patel. No, Lieutenant. I believe we need to create an entirely new category. The humans aren't violating our protocols. They're operating on a level we never even considered possible. The sound of Patel's whistling faded down the corridor, leaving behind a station that ran better than ever, and 2 aliens with a growing suspicion that their understanding of engineering might never be the same. The first major space battle after the integration of human engineers into the Galactic Confederation fleet wasn't supposed to be anything spectacular. The Drachnid pirates had filed their attack permits 3 weeks in advance, as per regulation, complete with projected casualty reports and estimated property damage assessments. Everything was proceeding according to standard combat protocols until the pirates landed a direct hit on the human vessel SS Ingenuity. Fleet Commander Rix 890 watched in mounting horror as Commander Patel's engineering team responded in ways that violated approximately 347 different combat repair protocols simultaneously. They're doing what? Rix 890's voice modulators crackled with distress as they watched the video feed from the Ingenuity. They're going outside, Commander. First Officer Tech reported, their crystalline structure flickering with anxiety during combat, without filing EVA permission forms, and they appear to be carrying toolboxes. The entire bridge crew of the Confederation flagship watched, transfixed, as 5 human engineers in what they called spacesuits, desperately simple pressure vessels that lacked proper certification stamps, crawled across the Ingenuity's hull like particularly determined space insects. Commander Patel, Rix 890 called over the emergency channel. You cannot possibly conduct external repairs during active combat. The regulations clearly state. Little busy right now, Commander. Patel's voice crackled back, punctuated by the sound of something being hammered. Unless you want this plasma leak to turn the Ingenuity into a very expensive firework, we need to patch it now. But the proper procedure for plasma containment breaches requires evacuation of all affected sectors and a massive explosion rocked the Ingenuity as another pirate shot found its mark. The alien observers collectively gasped as they watched one of the human engineers, Lieutenant James Rodriguez, literally jump across open space to catch his floating colleague, using what appeared to be a common wrench as a makeshift grappling hook. "Nice catch, Rodriguez." Patel's voice came through, somehow sounding cheerful despite the chaos. "While you're over there, take a look at that shield generator. Looks like it's throwing a fit again." "On it, Chief. Just need my lucky screwdriver and some of that special tape we got from supply." "Special tape?" First Officer Tech queried, their translator struggling with the concept. "They call it space duct tape." Another officer whispered in horror. "It's not even in the approved materials database." The battle continued to rage around them, but all attention was focused on the human repair crew. They watched in collective shock as Rodriguez braced himself against a hull plate and began making repairs to a critically damaged shield generator using nothing but hand tools and what looked suspiciously like adhesive strips. That's impossible," Rix 890 muttered. "Shield generators require clean room conditions and at least 3 quantum alignment specialists to even diagnose, let alone repair." Yet somehow, the Ingenuity's shields flickered back to life, stronger than before. The pirates, who had been concentrating their fire on what they thought was an easy target, suddenly found their shots bouncing harmlessly off the restored defensive screen. "Shields back at 120%, Chief," Rodriguez reported proudly. "Gave it a little boost while I was in there." 120%. First Officer Tech's crystals nearly shattered. "That exceeds manufacturer specifications. It violates warranty terms. It's effective." Rix 890 finished, watching as the Ingenuity, now fully restored, began a devastating counterattack against the pirate fleet. The pirates, faced with this unprecedented display of mid-battle resurrection, did something that shocked the Confederation fleet even more. They retreated without filing the proper disengagement forms. As the dust settled and damage reports began flowing in, properly formatted, at least from the Confederation ships, Commander Rix 890 requested Commander Patel's presence for a debriefing. They needed to understand how the humans had accomplished what should have been impossible. Patel arrived in the debriefing room still wearing her repair-stained uniform, another violation of at least 7 different protocols. She carried with her a simple tablet and what appeared to be a cup of coffee, a stimulant beverage that made most alien species deeply nervous. "Commander Patel," Rix 890 began formally, "please explain how your team managed to repair a Class 7 shield generator in the middle of combat using only manual tools." Patel took a sip of her coffee. "Well, that's not entirely accurate, Commander. We also used some space tape, a bit of wire we salvaged from a damaged sensor array, and Rodriguez's lucky screwdriver." "Lucky screwdriver?" First Officer Tech's translator seemed to glitch on the phrase. "Oh yeah, Rodriguez swears by it. Says it's never failed him yet. Sometimes tools just develop a certain personality, you know." The aliens didn't know. Their tools were precision instruments, carefully calibrated and regularly replaced according to strict maintenance schedules. The idea of forming emotional attachments to them was deeply disturbing. But the shield generator specifications clearly state, "With all due respect, Commander," Patel interrupted, pulling up a diagram on her tablet. "Specifications are more like guidelines. Sure, they tell you how something's supposed to work under ideal conditions, but in the middle of a firefight, sometimes you have to get creative." Creative. Rix 890 repeated the word like it was a particularly complex quantum equation. "You do realize that getting creative with vital ship systems goes against every engineering principle the Confederation stands for." Patel smiled. "Maybe that's why you've never managed to exceed manufacturer specifications before. Sometimes you have to think outside the box." "We don't have a box," Tech pointed out. All our components come in standardized quantum-sealed containers. It's a figure of speech, Patel explained patiently. Look, I understand your way of doing things. It's methodical, it's precise, and under normal circumstances, it works perfectly. But combat isn't normal circumstances. Sometimes you need to trust your instincts, use what you have, and just make it work. As if to emphasize her point, she pulled something from her pocket that made both aliens recoil, a small roll of the infamous space tape. Want to see how it works? I noticed your secondary communication array is slightly out of alignment. No. Both aliens shouted simultaneously, then composed themselves. I mean, Rix 890 added more formally. We will schedule proper maintenance according to established procedures. Patel shrugged and tucked the tape away. Suit yourself, but when you're ready to learn how we do things, my team's always happy to share our methods, even if they are a bit unconventional. As they watched her leave the debriefing room, First Officer Tech turned to their commander. Should I update the engineering protocols to account for these human methods? Rix 890 stared at the door for a long moment. I don't think we can, Tech. How do you write protocols for the impossible? Somewhere on the Ingenuity, Rodriguez's lucky screwdriver sat in its toolbox, waiting for the next impossible repair, while a piece of space tape held a shield generator at 120% efficiency, cheerfully defying both physics and warranty agreements. The galaxy would never be quite the same. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Engineering Council had never seen such chaos. The normally orderly chamber, with its perfectly aligned quantum crystal architecture and methodically arranged seating pods, had devolved into something approaching disorder as thousands of the galaxy's most prestigious engineers attempted to discuss, or rather, shout about, the human engineering phenomenon. Order in the council. High Engineer Vex 927 called out, their crystalline resonator barely cutting through the cacophony of agitated voices. We will maintain proper meeting protocols even while discussing these irregular developments. At the center of the chamber stood Commander Ishara Patel, looking remarkably unconcerned for someone who had just been summoned before the galaxy's highest engineering authority. She was actually leaning against the presentation podium, a posture that made several council members visibly uncomfortable. Perhaps, Vex 927 continued, their voice modulator struggling to maintain composure. Commander Patel could explain how her engineering team achieved a 47% increase in overall fleet efficiency using methods that are, by all established standards, completely impossible. Patel straightened up and pulled out a small device that caused several council members to flinch. A laser pointer that clearly lacked the required 17 safety certifications. It's actually quite simple, she began, gesturing to the holoscreen behind her. We stopped treating ships like machines and started treating them like living things with their own personalities. The chamber erupted again. Professor Quantum Logic, a leading expert in spacecraft psychology, a field that had existed for approximately 3 weeks, waved all 4 appendages in agitation. Preposterous. Ships do not have personalities. They are collections of carefully regulated systems operating according to precisely calculated parameters. Oh yeah, Patel grinned. Then explain why the HSS Ingenuity runs better when Rodriguez sings to her while doing maintenance. Sings. The word rippled through the chamber like a quantum disturbance. You allow vocalization during maintenance procedures. Not just allow. We encourage it. Each ship responds differently to different approaches. The Ingenuity likes old Earth jazz. The Determination prefers classical. And don't get me started on the Maverick. She's got a thing for rock and roll. High Engineer Vex 927's crystals flickered in distress. Commander Patel, are you suggesting that spacecraft have musical preferences? Among other things, some like gentle handling, others need a firm touch. The Steadfast won't start properly in the morning without a full systems check, but the Adventure just needs a quick pat on the console and some encouraging words. The council chamber had grown so quiet you could hear a quantum particle drop. Thousands of the galaxy's finest engineering minds struggle to process the concept that ships might have individual quirks and preferences. Professor Binary Absolute, head of the Theoretical Maintenance Division, finally spoke up. But where are the statistical analyses? The probability matrices? The quantum uncertainty calculations? Patel shrugged. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut. Trust your gut. The translator AI actually paused to verify the phrase. You make engineering decisions based on digestive organs. It's a figure of speech. Patel explained patiently. It means using intuition and experience rather than just following manuals. But the manuals are everything, cried out Junior Engineer Precision from the back of the chamber. They contain the accumulated wisdom of millennia of careful observation and documentation. Manuals are great for baseline operations, Patel agreed, but they can't account for every situation. Sometimes you need to improvise. The word improvise sent such a shock through the chamber that 3 council members had to be escorted out for emergency recalibration. Perhaps, Vex 927 suggested carefully, a demonstration would help us understand these methods. Patel's eyes lit up. Actually, I noticed your chamber's environmental control system is running about 3% below optimal efficiency. Mind if I take a look? Before anyone could cite the proper procedures for maintenance requests, she had already pulled out her tool belt and was heading toward the main control panel. But you haven't filed the necessary forms. Professor Binary Absolute protested. The inspection request alone requires. The sound of a panel being opened without proper documentation made several council members cover their sensory organs. They watched in horror as Patel reached in with a simple wrench, not even a quantum-calibrated one, and made several quick adjustments. The chamber's temperature, which had indeed been slightly off despite following all proper maintenance schedules, suddenly perfected itself. The air circulation improved noticeably, and the quantum crystal architecture seemed to resonate more harmoniously. There you go, Patel said, closing the panel. She just needed a little adjustment. These old systems sometimes get stuck in their ways, kind of like some engineers I know. The chamber erupted once again, but this time with a different tone. Some of the younger engineers were moving closer, asking questions about human maintenance techniques. A few were even daring to suggest that perhaps, just perhaps, there might be something to these unorthodox methods. High Engineer Vex 927 raised all their appendages for silence. Commander Patel, while your results are undeniable, these methods completely undermine 10,000 years of established engineering principles. What do you suggest we do about that? Patel smiled. Maybe it's time for some new principles. We're not saying throw out the old ways. They work great most of the time. But maybe add a chapter about intuition, about listening to the machines, about understanding that sometimes the best solution isn't in any manual. And the singing? Someone called out. Is that to be an official procedure now? Only if you've got the right voice for it, Patel laughed. The ships can be pretty picky about their music. As the council chamber dissolved into heated debates about the role of music in maintenance procedures and whether intuition could be quantified, Vex 927 made a note in their official log. Day 127 of human integration. They're either brilliant or insane, and I'm no longer sure which is which. But I caught myself patting my console this morning, and I swear it worked better afterward. Centauri Hub, the pride of the Galactic Confederation's engineering corps and the largest space station ever constructed, was having what Commander Patel would later describe as a really bad day. It started with a simple power fluctuation in the quantum core, the kind of thing that usually required a standard 3-week diagnostic procedure, and rapidly escalated into what the alien engineers were calling the Great Cascade. Station Director Zenith 789 stood in the primary control center, their crystalline structure vibrating with increasing distress as system after system began failing in ways that violated all known probability matrices. Report. They demanded, watching as red warning indicators spread across the master display like a viral infection. Senior Technical Advisor Precision X consulted their emergency procedures tablet. Director, we have simultaneous failures in the quantum core, gravitational stabilizers, atmospheric processors, and the coffee dispensers in Engineering Section 7. The coffee dispensers. Those aren't even connected to the main systems. Apparently, they are now, Precision X replied, their voice modulator crackling with stress. And they're sending quantum feedback loops through the entire station's infrastructure. The situation was unprecedented. Centauri Hub's systems were designed with redundancies for their redundancies. Every component was certified, documented, and maintained according to the strictest possible standards. It should have been impossible for everything to fail at once. And yet, have we implemented standard emergency procedures? Zenith 789 asked, trying to maintain some semblance of protocol. We've tried, Director, but the automated systems are insisting on filing maintenance requests in triplicate before they'll initiate emergency protocols. And the maintenance request system is writing poetry. Poetry. As if in response, the station's main computer began broadcasting in all sections. Roses are red, violations are blue, your systems are failing, and your protocols too. Director Zenith 789's crystals paled to an almost transparent hue. Contact the Galactic Engineering Council. We need their best experts. The communication system chose that moment to join the rebellion, replacing their urgent distress signal with what appeared to be ancient Earth cat videos. Director, Precision X said carefully, there might be another option. No, Zenith 789 knew exactly what their advisor was suggesting. Absolutely not. We are not calling in the humans. A violent shudder ran through the station as the gravitational stabilizers decided to experiment with new and exciting gravitational configurations. Director, Precision X insisted as they both floated briefly toward the ceiling. The humans have demonstrated unprecedented success rates with unusual malfunctions. Another shudder, and the station's lighting system began pulsing in sync with what the computer identified as disco beats. Zenith 789 watched as their perfectly regulated, meticulously maintained station descended into chaos. Their career, built on strict adherence to proper procedures, flashed before their eyes. Make the call, they whispered in defeat. 17 minutes later, bypassing all known laws of physics and faster-than-light travel restrictions, the HSS Ingenuity arrived. Commander Patel and her engineering team were already suited up and ready to board. Looks like you folks are having quite a party. Patel's voice crackled over the comm as she observed the station's erratic behavior. Mind if we crash it? Commander Patel. Director Zenith 789 began formally. Centauri Hub is experiencing multiple critical system failures that defy all known. Yeah, I can see that, Patil interrupted. The quantum core's throwing a tantrum, and it's got all the other systems worked up. Classic case of technological peer pressure. Technological peer pressure is not a recognized engineering concept. Tell that to the coffee dispensers, Patil replied cheerfully. Rodriguez, you take the gravity systems. Wong, sort out that atmospheric processor. I'll handle the quantum core. And somebody please get those coffee machines to calm down. We're going to need caffeine for this one. The alien engineers watched in horror as the human team split up, carrying toolboxes that violated at least 37 safety regulations each. They didn't file a single form. They didn't consult any manuals. They didn't even stop to calculate quantum probability matrices. They just fixed things. Rodriguez sang old Earth ballads to the gravity generators while rewiring their control systems with what looked suspiciously like spare parts from a food replicator. Wong had a heart-to-heart conversation with the atmospheric processors while adjusting their quantum alignments with a device that appeared to be held together with adhesive tape and optimism. And Patel walked straight into the quantum core chamber, ignoring all radiation warnings and mandatory waiting periods, pulled out her lucky wrench and got to work. You can't just adjust a quantum core manually. Precision X protested. The energetic realignment alone requires 17 different types of specialized equipment and a team of quantum philosophers too. The quantum core, which had been screaming in mechanical agony moments before, suddenly hummed to life with perfect harmony. The gravitational systems stabilized. The atmospheric processors resumed their normal functions. Even the coffee dispensers settled down, though they now produced coffee that was, by all accounts, significantly better than before. 3 hours later, Centauri Hub was running more efficiently than it ever had in its entire operational history. Director Zenith 789 stared at the diagnostic readings in disbelief. "How?" they finally asked. "How did you do it?" Patil shrugged, sipping from a cup of the newly improved coffee. "Sometimes systems just need a different approach. Your quantum core wasn't malfunctioning. It was bored." Bored. The director's translator struggled with the concept. Quantum cores cannot experience boredom. Sure they can. All that precision, all those regulations, sometimes they just need to let loose a little. We gave it some new variables to play with, jazzed up its quantum field harmonics, added a little personality to its operating parameters. But that's not in any manual. Best things usually aren't. Patil smiled. By the way, you might want to give your station's eye a hobby. Maybe something creative. I hear it has a talent for poetry. As the human engineering team prepared to depart, Director Zenith 789 made a decision that would have shocked their younger self. "Commander Patil, would your team be interested in conducting some unofficial training sessions for our engineers?" Patil's eyes lit up. "Thought you'd never ask." First lesson. Sometimes you have to let go of the manual and trust your gut. And the singing. Oh, that's at least lesson 3. Got to work up to that one slowly. 1 year after the Centauri Hub incident, the Galactic Engineering Academy looked very different. The formerly sterile halls, with their precise quantum-aligned architecture and regulation-approved color schemes, now displayed hints of humanity's influence. Toolboxes sat alongside quantum diagnostic arrays. Engineering students could be heard humming to malfunctioning equipment. And perhaps most shocking of all, there was a coffee maker in every workshop. High Engineer Vex 927, now co-director alongside Commander Patil of the newly formed Hybrid Engineering Initiative, stood before the graduating class of what many were calling the new wave of galactic engineers. When humans first joined the Confederation, they began, their crystals gleaming with an almost organic warmth. We thought they would destroy 10,000 years of engineering tradition. In a way, they did. But what they built in its place is something far more remarkable. The graduating class represented the first true merger of human and alien engineering philosophies. Crystalline beings sat next to humans, each with both traditional quantum tablets and what they now called intuition tools, the various wrenches, hammers, and yes, even rolls of space tape that had become standard equipment. Your predecessors built incredible things through precision and protocol. Vex 927 continued. But you have learned to build impossible things through a combination of science and intuition, regulation and innovation, precision, and what the humans call gut feeling. Commander Patil stepped forward, her formerly non-regulation engineer's uniform, now the standard for the new course. When I first arrived in Confederation space, both sides thought we could never work together. The aliens couldn't understand how we fixed things without proper protocols, and we couldn't understand how they got anything done with so many forms to fill out. A ripple of laughter went through the audience, another change in the formerly serious halls of the Academy. But we discovered something amazing, she continued. When you combine alien precision with human intuition, when you merge quantum mathematics with a well-timed application of percussive maintenance, when you balance regulations with innovation, that's when the real magic happens. As if to demonstrate, the Academy's main quantum core, which now ran at 150% of its original specifications, hummed a harmonic accompaniment to her words. The aliens in the audience had stopped questioning why the machinery seemed to respond to human speech. Some had even started talking to their own equipment, though most still filed the proper forms before doing so. You are the first generation of what we call hybrid engineers, VEX 927 announced proudly. You understand both the importance of proper maintenance protocols and when to throw them out the airlock. You can calculate quantum harmonics in your sleep and know exactly where to put the space tape. You are the future of galactic engineering. The ceremony concluded with what had become the traditional blessing of the tools, each graduate placing their quantum tablets and manual tools together in their workspace, symbolizing the union of both engineering philosophies. Later, at the reception, another human tradition that had been integrated into Academy life, VEX 927 found Patel tinkering with a malfunctioning serving droid, still fixing things manually. They asked, their tone now carrying a hint of amusement rather than horror. Old habits, Patel grinned, giving the droid a gentle pat. It whirred happily and resumed its duties with notably more enthusiasm. Besides, some things just need a personal touch. Indeed, VEX 927's crystals pulsed thoughtfully. You know, I tried talking to my personal transport yesterday, called it a good ship, and gave it a pat, just like you humans do. And it exceeded its efficiency ratings by 12%, and I swear it purred. Patel laughed. Welcome to our world, my friend. Once you start treating machines like friends instead of just tools, they have a way of surprising you. Around them, the new generation of engineers mingled and shared stories. A young alien was enthusiastically demonstrating their lucky quantum spanner to a group of humans. A human engineer was teaching a group of crystalline beings the finer points of diagnostic percussion, or as they still called it, percussive maintenance. In the station's main hangar, ships of all designs sat side by side, their maintenance logs showing a beautiful blend of precise quantum alignments and good old-fashioned human intuition. The HSS Ingenuity, still sporting its patches of space tape and non-regulation modifications, had become a teaching tool for the Academy, proof that sometimes the best solutions weren't found in any manual. We've created something unprecedented, VEX 927 observed. A perfect fusion of precision and instinct, of protocol and improvisation. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy, Patel said softly. We don't just think outside the box. We teach others that sometimes there doesn't need to be a box at all. As if in agreement, every piece of machinery in the Academy hummed in perfect harmony, a symphony of human intuition and alien precision, creating a sound that could never be replicated by following regulations alone. The future of galactic engineering had arrived, and it was running at well over 100% efficiency, even if nobody could quite explain how. And somewhere in the depths of space, that first piece of space tape that had started it all was still holding strong, a testament to the day when humanity showed the galaxy that sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones, even if they make the warranty department cry.